네, 안녕하세요. 늦은 시간에도 불구하고 웨비나에 참가해 주셔서 감사합니다. 웨비나 주제는 보시는 화면처럼 생산성 향상을 위한 JetBrains ID에서 할 수 있는 13가지 Git 팁에 관한 내용이고요. 저는 오늘 웨비나 진행을 맡은 JetBrains 한국 총판 당구소프트의 강성윤입니다. 오늘 웨비나는 크게 3가지 순서로 진행되는데요. 먼저 오늘 주제에 대해 사전에 녹화된 영상이 한글 자막과 함께 송출되고, 녹화 영상 시청 후에는 이어서 라이브로 질의응답 시간을 진행하게 됩니다. 또 짧은 퀴즈도 함께 진행될 예정입니다. 퀴즈는 발표 영상 끝나자마자 그리고 질의응답 시간이 끝나고 진행될 예정입니다. 웨비나 중간에 질의사항이 있으신 경우에는 지금 옆에 보이시는 유튜브 댓글창을 통해 자유롭게 남겨주시면 되고요. 실시간으로 문의해 주신 내용들도 이후 진행되는 질의응답 시간에 함께 답변 드리도록 하겠습니다. 앞서 말씀드린 퀴즈에 대해서 잠깐 설명드리겠습니다. 퀴즈가 나오게 될 때 유튜브 댓글창을 통해 가장 빠르게 정답을 말씀하신 분이 당첨자가 되고요. 당첨자께는 지금 화면에 보이시는 여러 jetbrains 굿즈들을 사실 수 있는 jetbrains 머천다이즈 스토어 바우처를 지급해 드릴 예정입니다. 아울러 오늘 진행되는 웨비나는 녹화가 되는 점 미리 안내를 드리고요. 이후 유튜브 채널에도 게시될 예정이기 때문에 만약 오늘 미처 놓치신 부분이 있다면 이후 게시되는 영상을 찾아주시면 감사하겠습니다. 자, 그럼 오늘 발표자이신 JetBrains의 디벨로퍼 애드보케이트신 폴 에버리님을 소개해 드리겠습니다.
Hello, Yun. Hello, everyone. It's wonderful to be with you talking about these unified tips on version control. I make these videos in this room by myself. I never get to go out and see anybody. I don't exactly get to see you, but it's almost like I get to see everybody and talk about version control. I was also in the slides that you did the intro on, you showed something about JetBrains gear and about the merchandise that we have available. And I've been going to conferences for JetBrains for years. It is amazing to me how many people come to the booth and say, can I get some JetBrains gear? So this is really cool that you're giving away some apparel for a quiz prize. I think Yun might be locked up a little bit. I'll give a little bit of an intro for myself. I am a developer advocate at JetBrains. I cover Python and web, also known as the two cool things in programming these days. The things that we'll be showing today are called unified tips, and so they apply to all of our IDEs. When I make these videos, I record them in Markdown, so that no one really knows which IDE it is that I'm using. Hey, Jesse, you're muted.
안녕하세요, 여러분. 전 jetbrain의 한국 마케팅 담당자 조정은입니다. 기술적인 이슈로 인해서 지금 원래 기존에 진행하시려고 했던 분이 약간 이렇게 잘 안 돼서 제가 지금 대신 맡고요. 저희 그 jetbrain의 디벨로퍼 애드보케이션 폴이 오늘 전체적인 영상을 녹화한 영상에 대해서 영상을 녹화했고, 오늘 이따가 Q&A 시간에도 질의응답에 대해 답변을 해드릴 예정입니다. 이제 제가 아까 앞서 진행자가 말씀드렸던 퀴즈 상품에 대해서 폴도 간단하게 말씀해 주셨는데요. jetbrains 그 굿즈를 살 수 있는 스토어가 있습니다. 많은 분들이 이미 아셨을 수도 있는데, 그래서 그 스토어에서 사실 수 있는 이제 이 스토어는 사실 굉장히 많은 분들이 원하셨었던, 요청해 주셨던 기능이었는데요. 이 부분에 대해서도 이따가 퀴즈 맞추시고 꼭 상품 받아가시길 바랍니다. 그러면 저희가 이제 바로 발표 영상을 보도록 하겠습니다. Paul, are you ready?
I am ready, and Jesse is the one who came up with the idea of me joining you today. So Jesse, thank you for having me today.
Thank you for joining for today's webinar. 자, 그러면 저희 이제 한번 볼까요? Are you ready, Paul? Really
I'm
ready?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go.
Undo a commit without misery. You botched your last commit. You want to fix it, but you haven't memorized the Git voodoo chant. Good news, If you haven't pushed yet, the IDE can make this really easy. Let's take a look. First, go to the Git tool window and make sure you're on the Log tab. Here's the list of commits on the current branch. The most recent one is at the top. Right-click that commit, and in the pop-up window, choose Undo Commit. That commit has some changes. We don't want to discard them. Let's keep them in the default change list. And now the commit tool window tells me that I have unstaged changes. And now that commit never happened. Let's look a little deeper. You're editing, say, a markdown file. Let's leave the commit tool window and the Git tool window open to see the updates as we go. You change some text and go to do a commit, put in a message, and for the 1000th consecutive time, you spot a typo just as the on key up event fires when clicking commit. Alas, the commit tool window shows that there are no staged changes. And in your Git log, there it is, the mistaken commit. That means it's too late, right? Nope, if you haven't pushed yet to a protected branch, you can clean things up locally, and the IDE puts a convenient UI atop the underlying Git command. In the Git tool window, find the most recent commit. It's the one at the top. When we select it, we see that we get more detail about the commit. We can actually double-click the file to see what the change was. When you right-click on a commit, you get some actions that you can take on it. Some of them might be grayed out. For example, if I go to an older commit that's already been pushed, right-click, I can't do an undo commit because it's grayed out. Back to the first commit, right-click on it, choose undo commit. Now, the commit had some changes in it, and these changes need to go somewhere. The IDE's change lists feature provides just such a place. We'll stick with the default change list. This results in our commit tool window showing the unstaged commits after we click OK. A look in the Git log also shows a change. That commit is gone. We're back to where we were before the commit. What would this have been like from the command line? Let's take a look at the Git Tools console tab. This lets us see behind the scenes. There it is, the command that we would have had to type from the command line. And that's it for undoing your last commit. Fix a commit message, easy peasy. That last commit message had a typo. You haven't pushed yet, just right-click on the commit, choose Edit Commit Message, and fix the mistake. Now your commit history passes the spell checker. That's how to do it. Let's take a deeper look. This is my development life. I finally wrap up a big pile of work, go to do a commit, and in the rush of victory, make a spelling error, which I spot just as I finish clicking commit. Alas, it's there in the history. We haven't pushed, so there's hope. I know, just learn Git from the command line. That works for you, but I don't wanna. The good news, our IDEs are really good at this kind of janitorial work. Of course, the best solution is to fix the problem before committing. Our IDEs have a plugin called Grazie, which does, well, let's just call it super cool spelling and grammar checking. It probably warned you about the typo. It will probably even fix the typo for you. Back to our messed up commit message. I could, of course, go to the terminal and type some blah blah arcane blah blah, at least to me, commit message, and of course, hope I don't corrupt my repo. This has some downsides. Go to the command line, type something a little obscure, possibly get something wrong, and get no help from the spell checker. Fortunately, this is the kind of thing we are great at. Right-click on the commit, and you'll get a list of actions to take on that commit. There are lots of things we can do to help, as this list shows. And beside Edit Commit Message, you can see F2. This shows how we could have skipped the context menu by selecting the commit and pressing F2. we'll select that option and be prompted with a dialog to edit the commit. The existing commit message is there. We can see there's a warning about the typo. We mouse over for more detail. This is the Grazie plugin helping us again. We can type to fix it or use Alt-Enter to get a correction. Once fixed, click OK to finish the operation. You now see the commit history with the fixed commit message. And that's how easy it is to edit a messed up commit message. Use local history when Git can't save you. You're in your repo, you add a file. Later you make some edits, but then you change your mind. You want to revert, but you never committed. Use the IDE's local history on a file when you aren't under version control at all, or you're in between commits. Browse each IDE change, see diffs, recover from mistakes. Delete a file by accident? Go to the folder's local history and recover that too. That's the basics. Let's take a deeper look. This is the "oh my goodness, you saved my sanity" tip. Sometimes you are in a project that isn't yet under version control, or you've done a lot of work since your last commit. For example, this file is under version control, but as you can see, I've been very busy. I pause for a bit, have some inspiration, and hack away. I delete this paragraph, then ultimately finish the text. But now I want that paragraph back. Git can't help because I didn't commit before hacking away. I could try undo, 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 copy, redo, 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 paste. But that's barbaric. There has to be a better way. And this is going to be one of those things people love about our IDEs. Local history to the rescue. Our IDEs have a built-in facility that tracks revisions for all IDE-initiated changes, whether you're using a VCS or not. Right-click on a file and choose Local History, then Show History. On the left, you get a list of changes detected by the IDE. When you select one, you get a diff, comparing it to the current file contents on the right. As you go through the changes, you see each diff. Like our normal diff viewer, you can apply changes to recover portions. Perhaps you want the entirety of the file at that point in the history. Right-click on that revision and choose Revert. If a certain revision is known to be in a certain state, right-click and apply a friendly label. Next time you go to local history, you'll see that label displayed. That covers changes to a file, but what if you deleted the file and it wasn't under VCS? Go to that file's folder and choose local history. The deletion event is there and you can restore the file. As wrap up, let's see the sequence without the mouse. I'll invoke Search Everywhere and search for the Show Local History action. In the Local History window, I tab into the Old Changes panel. Cursor down to the Edit, tab to go into the Changes, and on Mac, Control-Command right arrow to accept changes. When disaster strikes and VCS can't help you, use the IDE's local history facility to recover individual changes or even deleted files. Did I really commit without that one change? Again, you're finishing some work. Phew! It's time to commit with a good commit message. But as soon as you commit, you realize you left something out. Good news, the IDE makes amend commit really easy. Make your change. If you haven't pushed, go back to the commit and check amend. When you commit, your change is now included. That's a quick glance. Let's take a deeper look. Here's the problem, and this happens to me a lot. You do a bunch of work, such as write the markdown for this tip and update some thumbnails. You can see the changes. At this point, you're really excited or really exhausted. You want to declare victory with a commit. It is at this exact point that you remember one of those cleanup tasks. Maybe it's update the docs. In this case, you forgot to update the date. Are you really going to do another commit or undo the last commit? There's got to be a better way, and yep, there's a better way. Git lets you amend a commit. Yeah, you out there about to tell us it's easy from the command line. We hear you. But some of us civilians feel otherwise. The Git tool window tells you about your last commit and what changed. You want to make a change, get it into that commit as if the change was there in the first place. What are your options? In a previous video, we showed you undo commit. This would put everything back, you make your change, then another commit. Instead, let's skip straight to it with amend commit. You make the change. The IDE's commit tool window says you have changes. This is where the IDE can help versus the command line. Maybe you did a lot of changes before remembering the missing piece. You can deselect files or go into files and deselect change regions. Now you're ready, you click amend, and suddenly you're back to where you were when you last committed. Except our new change is considered part of the commit. In our Git log, there isn't a new entry, just the same previous commit. When you view the diff for the markdown change, you see the date change is now included. For those that don't trust the convenience, you can look at the Git console to see the command which you would have typed from the command line. One last point, what would this look like without a mouse? Follow along with the pop-ups at the bottom. We make a change, open the commit tool, Control-Alt-M on Mac to check the amend box, then Control-Enter to commit. Forgetting something in a commit, that's something I always remember to do. You can read more about this in the IDE help pages, which also cover the intriguing topic of amending a further back commit. Some changes are ready. Other changes, You've done a lot of work, but not all the changes should go in one commit. Let's use partial commit. In the commit window, look at your changes. Skip the second file by clicking the checkbox. In the first file, open the diff and deselect some of its changes. Now when you commit, just those parts are included. The unselected parts remain as changes. That's a quick glance. Let's take a closer look. You sit down to do some work, it's going well. You're in the zone. You have an idea for some other work, something for next week. Exciting stuff, you can't help yourself. You write it down. You get a phone call. You forgot a change in something that you did last week. Need to make a small fix. Back to what you were doing at first. You wrap it up. Time to ship it with a good commit message. But there are actually 3 units of work slotted for this commit. Today's work, next week's work, and last week's work. Each should get separate commits. Of course, you could just do a single commit with part of the commit message for each unit. Fast for you for now, but not fast for others trying to decipher the commit history later. You could roll back the second 2 changes, then manually reapply them, but that's, how shall we say, inefficient. You could use the underappreciated change list or stash facilities. Maybe there's a quick and easy solution. Quick and easy? Time for partial commits. What's a partial commit? Here's a website that explains it. That paragraph describes exactly what we want to do. The how? Maybe a little cumbersome. Fortunately, our IDEs have been putting a pretty face on this operation for a while. Let's return to the commit tool window and walk through committing just the work we want. First, leaving out an entire file, just click the checkbox on any files. Sometimes you have a big directory hierarchy of files that might have been copied in. Leaving them out is easy, just deselect the parent. You could even go in and reselect just a couple. Next, leaving out part of a file. Bring up the diff tool, find the change you want to omit, and click the checkbox. If you change your mind, reselect it. This is just like the normal diff tool. You could scroll through changes in a file, between files, use the keyboard only. All of those productivity tips apply. When you finish, you'll see the checkbox has a dash. That means it is between checked and unchecked. Think of it as some. You do your commit as normal. It leaves the unselected changes out of the commit, meaning they are still there. You could continue your process to select the changes for next week's commit with a good commit message. Then the changes for last week's commit, again with a good commit message. There you've processed all the changes. Your commit history is easy to digest later. Want to see what happened behind the scenes? The Git Tools log tab shows the commands issued. This is what you would have had to type. Jumbo commits are bad. Our IDEs, as usual, can help with the janitorial work of keeping your history tidy. I want to see what changed in my editor when I'm, editing. I'm working hard. Adds, edits, deletes. I go away, then come back. What was it that I did? Let the IDE's gutter show you. Green shows additions. Blue means changes. The expando triangle, deletions. But wait, there's more. Click to see an inline diff and actions such as rollback. All right there in your editor. No losing your flow. That's a quick glance. Let's take a deeper look. It's easy to forget what you did an hour ago. For example, you're cranking out something big. This tip. You're adding new lines of content. You're changing lines. You're deleting lines. You spent hours in thought. Feels good to get it all written down. You then go away to do some other work. When you come back, you've lost your train of thought. What were you doing? What had you done? VCS could help. You can do it the caveman way from the command line. Or you can use the IDE's nice Git integration. It will show you the changed files, but you then need to go into them and go through a diff, and the listing will show you every change in the project. What you want is something in the editor to use while you're editing at a glance. What's changed? So you can stay in the flow. Seeing what changed and staying in the flow, that's what we're good at. Use the IDE's gutter markers to spot changes with just a quick look. Changed regions have a color block. This region was added. It's in green. This region had an edit. It's in blue. This region had the line contents deleted with a blank line in its place. It's in, whatever is that color. This region had a delete. The gutter marker is now a little expando triangle. Next, perhaps you want to know more about that change. These regions are clickable. This gives you a little, non-obtrusive, easily dismissed inline inlay. The inlay shows a little preview of the diff. Nice. It also has some really useful buttons. You can move between changes or roll back that change, which you will use all the time. You can launch a full diff. You can copy that change region to the clipboard, toggle highlighting the change, and finally, use the change list facility to move this change out of the way. When you're done, hit escape or click elsewhere to dismiss the panel, and you're right back where you were. This tip video has mods. First, from Vazia, a reminder that you can also tackle this need with the IDE's Show History for Selection action. Here it is in action. Make a selection, search for the action, then invoke it, and get a pretty powerful, quite useful narrative about what happened right here, and just dismiss it to return to your work. My colleague Matt Ellis points out, use the gutter to make Git staging more usable, including with change lists. Our help pages are a fantastic resource. Let's see this topic, for example, in the Goland help. The page explains it all and then tells you how to customize those colors. What a friendly and useful feature. Let the IDE help you remember where you were, what you did, and if you want to, act on it. I'm off working, but everyone else is too. How do I stay in sync? When you work on a feature, you create a feature branch. Here you can work away in isolation. You're finished, you commit with a good commit message, then go back to your main branch and wrap up with a local merge, then a push to share with your team. All good. That was suspiciously easy. This time you're on a branch, you again wrap up your work with a commit, switch to main, and merge. All good, but while you were away, and that wraps up my feature, a colleague also merged something to main. Now when you push, Git is unhappy, does not spark joy. This example though is easy. The changes don't overlap, so you let the IDE do the cleanup. But what if the person edited the same line as you? If you do the same steps, now you have a merge conflict. Really does not spark joy. This leads to the work of resolving the conflict. You could have avoided this if you just knew about their commit before you did your change. If you thought maybe the IDE can help me on that, well, right you are. Every 20 minutes, the IDE checks if there are remote commits to a locally tracked branch. If so, the branch pop-up will show a blue down arrow on the unsynced branch. A mouse over explains. Indeed, if you make a local commit in a local branch, then merge to a tracked branch such as main, but haven't yet pushed the commits, now when you open the branch pop-up, you see a green up arrow on that branch. A mouse over explains that the branch has incoming and outgoing commits. I wonder if this has a setting. Well, of course our IDEs have a knob for that in the Git settings. Here you can adjust the policy. You can learn a lot from our help pages. Let's see this topic in the IntelliJ IDEA help. There you go, an explanation of the green, blue, and up and down arrows on the branch. Merge conflicts do not spark joy. Thankfully, the ever so helpful IDE is right there letting you know there are changes you might want to get. Changes on the main branch. Maybe I ought to look at them before merging. You're working on a feature branch? In the last video, we saw how the IDE can show you when the main branch gets updated. You look and yes, in fact, main does have incoming commits. You go to git log, but nothing. What's up with that? The IDE checks regularly for remote changes, but it doesn't fetch the changes. Okay, let me guess. The IDE help pages explain this. Our IDE help pages explain all this. Your local Git is just as it was before the check, and it certainly hasn't updated your working copy files. I think I'd like to see those changes before I apply them. You know, look before you leap. In Git terms, we want to fetch changes. This gets us the new data from commits, but changes are not applied to your code. How do you do a fetch? If you prefer the keyboard, search by action and type fetch. You can also open the branches pop-up and click the blue down arrow, or go to the Git menu and do a fetch from there. Keyboard, pop-up, menu, you do you. The Git log timeline now tells you that origin main, that kind of violet color, has 2 new commits in the swim lane view. We're in the all branches view. To emphasize our current state, double-click to zoom on our local branch. No evidence in the swim lanes of those 2 commits from origin main. Same for our local main. But remote main, that shows the 2 commits. We finish by going back to the all view. Okay, I like saying the word swim lanes. That tells you about the commits, but what about the changes in the commit? Just click on the commit and get more detail, including a diff. My colleague Merritt has several good videos on using Git from our IDEs, including this one on resolving merge conflicts. Merritt recommends fetch and the look before you leap described here. This lets you see if there are problems before starting your merge instead of being surprised by a disruption. What's the YOLO option? But if you know you're working alone, you can use the IDE's update action, Command T on Mac. It combines fetch and pull. As explained in our help pages, update does several things at once. Getting your local project up to date with remote changes involves some choices. Be careful, roll the dice. Either way, the IDE can help you do the work and show you the consequences. I want to merge, but what's in those commits? In the last 2 videos, we saw notification of remote commits, where we poll every 20 seconds, how to get those commits using fetch, and how it updates the Git log swim lanes. These swim lanes are great. They tell us that those commits are in main. We kind of want them in our feature branch. One more thing though, what changes are included in those commits? I'll say it again, look before you leap. In the last video, we saw going to the Git log, choosing a commit, and getting to a diff. This is against your local branch, not the uncommitted changes in your working directory. My colleague Marco, who is brilliant at showing this stuff, has a video on this with other good tips. This is all stolen from him. But that's not the branch. That's a commit on the branch. If the branch had multiple commits, you could select all of them. The IDE will figure out all the changes versus your local branch. Marco covered this multiple select mergey thingy in the same video. Marco. That's a lot of work. Let's just compare with the branch. In the pop-up, select a branch and choose Compare with your branch name. The top shows commits in main since your branch last updated with it. The bottom has your commits in your branch, not yet part of main. Here's what I use. That's for commits on your branch. Show diff with working tree compares against the changes in your working directory. Use show diff, then navigate through the changes. Yeah, Marco covered that too. Our help pages also cover this quite well, with a good explanation of comparing with your local branch or with your working tree. Previously, we saw the IDE told you there were commits and you browsed them. Now we saw comparing those changes with your current work, all on the way to getting those changes into your branch. Time to get caught up, but how do I get their changes onto my branch? You make a feature branch based on this commit on main. You do some work, commit, Your swim lane tells you where you are. While you were working, you noticed your colleague committed to main. Learned our lesson about merge conflicts the hard way. You don't want to get out of date, so you do a fetch. The swim lane now shows main has a commit after the one your branch is based on. That change looks interesting. We'd like more detail, so we'll compare it with our working tree. Yes, you want that work in your branch. Start by getting those changes applied to your local main. You could merge it into your branch, but then when you finish and merge back to main, that commit will be in two places. Let's tackle this with Git's rebase feature. Let's see the solution visually, then perform the IDE action. Our feature branch was based off this commit. You keep emphasizing the word base. We want to redo the basing, meaning rebase. We want to act as if this branch started from this commit instead of this commit. Redo the basing. We're going to move the connection point. Go to that branch and choose Rebase your branch name onto main. Watch the swim lane. We select Rebase and the line now goes to the newer commit. We just showed look before you leap. You fetch first, then rebase. Want to do both at once? YOLO. This time go to the remote branch and choose pull into. This does a fetch and rebase in one step. Which way is better? Don't say it depends. Well, it depends. If you have a lot of trust, skip the step. In the previous video, we saw what changed on the main branch. Now, finally, we apply those changes and now we're up to date. I need to move some unfinished work aside and fix something on main. Can the IDE put them aside? Maybe on a shelf? You're on a feature branch with some unfinished work as we see in the commit window. A colleague asks, can you fix something on main? You switch to main and crap, the feature branch has uncommitted work. The IDE offers to help, but what are the consequences? Do it. What could go wrong? Forced checkout means losing our work. Don't check out? That's like canceling the branch change. Smart checkout, let's click that. But that triggers a merge conflict and applies your changes to main. That was not what I wanted. Let's start back at the top. Your branch has uncommitted work. You could do a commit and maybe squash later to clean up history. You could throw away all of your work, switch to main, come back and redo it. You're not putting that in the video, right? Not a lot of good options. What if I told you that the IDE has a cleverly named solution that just works? On the feature branch with the uncommitted work, we can move that work aside temporarily using the IDE's shelve facility. Click the Shelve Silently button to move things out of the way. Shelve, that's a good name. The commit window shows that there are no uncommitted changes. Where did that work go? Take a look at the Shelf tab. Under Changes, we see that unfinished work. We can safely switch to the main branch, make the change, and commit. Then go back to the feature branch. Use Unshelve Silently to take the work off the shelf and resume where you left off. Back on the Commit tab, you see everything is back where you started with the uncommitted work. Wait, that was like zero work. If you want more control, you can shelve just parts of the uncommitted work to a specially named shelf. On the Shelf tab, you see a new shelf with the name you gave. It has the changes. You can unshelve it and choose the place, an IDE change list, to unshelve it to. And we're back where we started. Shelve is a super simple way to move work to the side, and if you need more than the basics, Shelve has a lot to offer. I need to move some unfinished work aside and fix something on main. Git solves this with stash. Can I use this in the IDE without much thinking? You're on a feature branch with some unfinished work, as we see in the commit window. A colleague asks, can you fix something on main? You switch to main and crap, the feature branch has uncommitted work. Force checkout means losing our work. Don't check out, that's like canceling the branch change. Smart checkout, let's click that. Do it, what could go wrong? But that triggers a merge conflict and applies your changes to main. If you commit, it's going in too. That could go wrong. Let's start back at the top. Your branch has uncommitted work. You could do a commit and maybe squash later to clean up the history. Or you could throw away all of your work, switch to main, come back and retype everything. You're not putting that in the video, right? Not a lot of good options. You're going to tell me the IDE has a solution for this. The IDE has a solution for this. On the feature branch with the uncommitted work, you can move that work aside temporarily using Git's stash facility. You can get to it with the Git menu under uncommitted changes. In the stash dialog, provide a name and click Create Stash. Look, no more pending work, neato. Switch to the main branch, make your change, commit, then go back to the feature branch. Let's get the unfinished work back. Paul, use the keyboard, said every commenter ever. Invoke search everywhere and search for unstash changes. This lists your stashes. It also has some controls for managing your stashes. Select your work in progress and click Pop Stash to delete the stash after applying it. Then click the Pop Stash button. Hey, Git folks, stash, pretty cool name. Unlike shelve, stashes can be reached outside the IDE, for example, the Git command line. But it doesn't work when the target branch is dirty, uncommitted changes, and doesn't let you choose which parts to stash. It's all or nothing. Stash is an uptown Git feature which really simplifies bouncing around between branches. Let the IDE help put this within easy reach. You finish your work on a branch, do your last commit, time to merge your feature branch to main. You update main, then do the merge, and the dreaded merge conflict. Ouch, that's going to leave a mark. In the actual file on disk, here's what things currently look like. I kind of understand that, but it scares me. You could resolve things manually. Can the IDE help? Our IDEs have been good at that since like forever. You could discard their changes by clicking Accept Yours, or throw out your changes with Accept Theirs. The table helps explain which is which, but probably not what you want. To start resolving, click the Merge button, and the IDE guides you through each change in each file. In the left column, you see a file as it is in the branch you are merging into. In this case, main. All kinds of changes, additions in green, removals in gray, and blue, with conflicting changes in red. I think I can sort that out. On the right, you see that same file as it is on your branch, the feature branch you're merging. In the middle, you see the in progress merged result for this file. Now, process each change, ignore it by clicking the X, or keep it by clicking the arrows. As you do, the middle pane updates and you have one less change to process. If you clicked the wrong button, use undo to put things back in its previous state. That is very reassuring, thanks. The middle pane is a fully featured IDE editor, including autocomplete. If you need to correct something, just start typing. Some of these changes aren't conflicts. Save time by accepting non-conflicting changes in both directions, or just one. We'll use this in a second. You can move between changes sequentially. If there is a second file with unresolved changes, the tool will shift to that. You were right, that saved a lot of time. Let's click All to process non-conflicting changes in both files. Once you have processed all the conflicts, the IDE will detect all changes have been processed. Click Save Changes and finish merging. Resolving merge conflicts? Scary and cumbersome as well. Let our IDE help turn this into a quick, low-stress task.
네, 영상 전에 앞서서 좀 기술적인 이슈가 있었네요. 웨비나 진행이 초반에 좀 말끔하지 못했던 점 죄송합니다. 앞선 영상에 소개된 여러 가지 팁 잘 보셨나요? 여러분들이 평소에 알지 못했던 유용한 기능들이었다면 좀 좋겠습니다. 댓글창도 반응이 많이 뜨거웠던 걸로 좀 보이네요. 자, 그러면 지금 첫 번째 퀴즈 바로 시작해 보도록 하겠습니다. 정답을 가장 먼저 맞추시는 분께 경품을 드리도록 하겠습니다. 자, 그럼 첫 번째 문제 주세요. 네, 다음 중 2022년도 유료 고객 수 기준으로 가장 빠르게 성장한 jetbrains 제품은 어떤 것일까요? 라는 문제인데요. 라이더, 나는 C라이온, 다는 인텔리제이 아이디어, 라는 PHP 스톰입니다. So about the question number 1, Paul, have you ever used the older IDE before?
This is an embarrassing question. I'm not a very good developer. All I've ever done is Python and web stuff. So all those hard programming languages, I can't do them.
네, 질문 정답자를 가리는 동안에 어떤 아이디를 다 써봤는지 물어봤는데 파이썬만 주로 써보셨다고 하네요. 네, 정답자가 바로 나온 것 같아요. 정답은 전체 옵션 중에 라이더였습니다. 폴이 답을 알고 있었는지 잠깐 한번 물어보도록 할게요. Paul, did you know the answer for quiz number 1?
No, I did not. And this is sad for me because two of my good friends on the advocacy team are with Ryder, and now they're going to say this to me every day for the next year.
네, 지금 폴을 비롯한 다른 이제 디자인 애드보케이트가 있는데 그 라이더 애드보케이트 분들이 이렇게 자랑을 할 거다라고 말씀을 해주셨네요. 바로 시간 관계상 질의응답 시간으로 넘어가도록 하겠습니다. 네, 저희가 이번 웨비나 사전에 받았던 질의사항들도 있고 라이브 중간 채팅으로 보내주셨던 여러 질문 사항들이 있는데요. 하나하나 좀 답변 드리도록 하겠습니다. Paul, are you ready for some Q&A?
Yes, I am, and I'm watching chat too. So we have a little bit of a delay, but we're going to see what people do.
네, 바로 질의응답 시간 진행해 보도록 하겠습니다. 첫 번째 질문부터 해볼게요. Git플로우나 GitHub 플로우와 같은 플로우를 이용할 때 좋은 점을 제안하면서 설명하면 좋겠습니다. So the question from the audience was, could you please explain what would be the beneficial, why we need to use when we use Git flow or GitHub flow? It would be great if you could demonstrate or suggestion.
Sure. If this was your question in the chat, kind of raise your hand or something and say that it was me, because that's a really good question. And do you want me to break my answers into pauses so you can translate?
That'll be good.
Right.
만약에 여기서 그 채팅창에 이 질문 하신 분이 있다면 한번 손 한번 들어달라고 하시네요. 아주 좋은 질문이라고 하시네요.
This isn't just one good question. This is several good questions because it's about Git and GitHub flow.
네, 이게 좋은 이유가 Git과 또 GitHub flow에 대해서 얘기해주고 있기 때문이라고 합니다.
So to explain for everyone else, Git flow is about working on a feature branch away from the main line of development. And then when you're finished, you merge back to the main branch or an integration branch.
네, Git플로우라고 하면 메인 브랜치에서 떨어져서 피처 브랜치에서 작업을 하고 또 인테그레이션 브랜치나 또 이제 피처 브랜치를 머지하는 방식으로 알고 계신데요.
GitHub adds a step called a pull request, which manages the work of merging back to the main branch to allow a conversation.
네, GitHub에서는 그 과정에 풀 리퀘스트라는 이제 좀 점검 단계를 통해서 이제 합쳐지기 전에 한 번 더 점검하는 그런 단계가 있다고 이해하시면 되겠습니다.
Our IDEs are really old, and so they have a lot of features for this, for the merging, and recently a lot of features for pull requests.
네, JetBrains ID가 좀 계속 많은 시간 동안 발전해 왔기 때문에 이런 연동과 관련돼서 많은 기능들이 있고 또 풀 리퀘스트와 관련된 것도 많이 있다고 합니다.
So that was a good question.
네, so I will move on to the next question. 네, 두 번째 질문으로 넘어가 보도록 하겠습니다. 두 번째 질문은 GitHub 사이트에 프로젝트 기능 연동 계획은 없는지 하는 질문인데요. So the next question is, are you planning to support integration with project from the GitHub site or on JetBrains IDEs?
Right. I believe this is about GitHub code spaces. Possibly, though, actually coming to think of it, what they mean is the new project facility. So that is something new for GitHub. I apologize. I had an answer prepared for code spaces. So I will give that answer instead.
네, 그 코드 스페이스라고 연동하는 것 같은데, 일단 그 관련된 뭔가 플러그인들은 좀 링크로 아마 저희 운영진들이 공유를 할 건데, 아직 코드 스페이스가 신규로 출시됐다 보니까 따로 이렇게 구체적인 질문은 답변은 아직은 좀 어렵다라고 이제 답변해 주셨네요. 그럼 바로 다음 질문으로 넘어가 보도록 하겠습니다. 세 번째 질문은 Git 브랜치 전략, 그리고 외부 솔루션의 머지 및 승인 절차가 필요한 경우에 브랜치 전략으로 되어 있는데요. The next question from the audience was they want to know Git branch strategy and branch strategy in case they need to merge with external solution and approval process.
Sure. I believe the first part about the branching strategy is covered by the first question about Git flow and GitHub flow.
네, 그 질문 준 거에 첫 번째 질문들은 아까 앞서 진행했던 답변과 좀 유사하다고 답변을 했다고 하시네요.
For the second part about an external process, external review, commit messages can integrate with an external issue tracker, such as GitHub or Jira, using a syntax in the commit message.
네, 지금 이제 두 번째로 말해준 것들은 뭔가 커밋 메시지를 이제 이슈 트래커와 연결할 수 있는 것들을 제공해 준다고 합니다. 뭐 GitHub가 됐든 지라가 됐든.
But if you want more than that, deeper integration, our GitHub integration with pull requests does a very good job of bringing all of that into the IDE, and other systems such as Space, our backend for orchestration.
네, 좀 더 그 구체적인, 좀 더 상세한 이런 인테그레이션 통합을 원한다면 GitHub 풀 리퀘스트를 연동해가지고 IDE 내에서 좀 많은 것들을 할 수도 있고 또 이제 JetBrains 스페이스에서도 연결을 하게 되면 좀 보다 심도 있는 제어가 가능하다고 그렇게 답변해 주셨습니다. 오케이. 바로 다음 질문으로 넘어가 볼게요. Git 관련해서 푸시에 대한 롤백, 포크 관리, 브랜치 관리, 노하우, 컴플리트 해결 팁들이 궁금합니다. 이렇게 했는데요. The next audience question was how to roll back the push commit and how to manage fork. Any tips about managing branch and how to resolve conflict?
Sure. This is a very good question I'm happy to say it was answered in the videos. There's a video on undo commit.
그 질문해 주신 거 또 다른 좋은 질문이라고 하셨는데요. 지금 보여주는 영상 시리즈에서 언두 커밋이라는 부분에서도 답변했다고 하네요.
And this is an example of how much I love using the IDE for this. I don't know how to do it from the command line anymore. I just right click and select undo commit and everything goes back the way it's supposed to be.
네. 지금 폴도 이 기능을 너무나 좋게 사용하고 있다고 합니다. 그냥 간단하게 한 번에 클릭이나 이렇게 그 액션을 통해서 바로 돌아가는 그런 걸 좀 보면서 아주 만족하는 기능이라고 합니다.
Minwoo Kim has a question about pull requests and navigation. I apologize. I don't know the answer to that. I'll come back to finishing the second part of this question. Merge conflicts. We also have a video that showed that, and it's a very difficult problem. I'm glad the IDE helps us on that.
네. 채팅창에서 중간에 이제 풀리켓 내비게이션 관련된 걸 질문해 주신 것 같은데요. 그 부분은 아직 조금 답변을 아직 좀 더 살펴보고 해야 될 것 같다고 하네요. 그다음에 이어서 좀 질문해서 얘기를 하자면 머지 컴플릭트도 앞서서 소개했던 비디오 영상에서 좀 설명이 되었다고 합니다. Yeah, shall we move on to the next question? 네, 이어서 좀 진행하도록 하겠습니다. 이미 추적 중인 파일을 무시하거나 스테이지 해제하는 방법이라고 질문을 나와주셨는데요. So the next question was how to unstage and ignore the files which are already on tracking.
Sure, there are two ways. If I understand the question, there are two ways you can get into this that state, that situation. And in the first one, you've added a new file using the IDE, and it will ask you if you want to register the file with VCS.
네, 여기에는 이제 두 가지 방안이 있다고 하는데요. 하나는 이제 파일을 ID에 넣을 때 이제 이거를 VCS로 등록을 할지 ID를 따내서 바로 이제 물어본다고 합니다.
And then the second way is you can go to a file, and maybe it's in red because it's not under VCS, and you can manually add it using Control K add to VCS.
네, 이제 그 두 번째 방법으로는 그 화면 창에서 아예 Control K라는 단축키를 눌러서 VCS에 추가하는 방법도 있다고 합니다.
I lied. There's a third way. When you go to commit, if you have some files that are not versioned, it shows you unversioned files and you can add it there too. It reminds you that you have some files.
네, 세 번째로 커밋 탭에 가시면 거기에 아직 등록이 안 된 파일들도 보게 될 텐데 버전이 안 된 파일이라고도 표시가 되기 때문에 거기서도 확인하실 수가 있습니다. 저희가 시간 관계상 아마 마지막 질문을 해야 될 것 같은데요. Git add로 추가했던 파일들을 스테이징에서 제외하는 기능이 있나요? 라는 질문인데요. So because of the time that we're given, it should be the last question.
Okay.
JetBrains IDE support feature excluding the files which were added by Git add from staging?
Yes, you can right click and choose an option to add the file to your .git ignore file.
네, 아주 그냥 단순하게 말씀해 주셨는데요. 파일을 우클릭하셔서 git ignore를 추가하면 된다고 짧게 답변해 주셨습니다. 저희가 시간 관계상 이제 Q&A는 조금 마치도록 하겠는데요. 라이브 채팅이나 이런 답변을 못 드리는 것들은 향후에 저희가 블로그 통해서 답변을 드릴 수 있도록 하겠습니다. 자, 그러면 대망의 마지막 두 번째 퀴즈입니다. 마찬가지로 가장 먼저 정답을 채팅창에 올려주신 분께 드리도록 하겠습니다. 그럼 두 번째 문제 바로 보여주세요. 네, 다음 중 대부분의 ID를 개발하는 데 사용하는 프로그래밍 언어는 어떤 것일까요? 파이썬, 자바스크립트, C++, 자바, 코틀린 이렇게 되어 있네요. 역시 답변하실 시간을 드리겠습니다. Paul, what language are you prefer the most?
There is only one choice, and it's the first choice.
네, 폴님은 파이썬 이제 애드보케이시다 보니까 그냥 단 한 가지의 답이라고 얘기를 하셨었네요. 정답자가 바로 또 나온 것 같네요. 네, 정답은 라번이었습니다. JetBrains IDE는 자바랑 JetBrains 개발한 코틀린 언어로 ID를 개발한다고 합니다. 네, 이렇게 두 번째 퀴즈를 끝으로 모든 순서가 끝이 났습니다. 웨비나 이외에도 저희가 다른 여러 가지 소식들을 아래 보시는 JetBrains 홈페이지, 블로그, 트위터, 유튜브, 페이스북에서는 다양하게 보실 수 있으니까요. 많은 관심을 가주시면 감사하겠습니다. 그리고 마지막으로 오늘 발표해 주신 폴님의 끝 인사로 마무리하도록 하겠습니다. Paul, we have a last word for the audience for today.
Thank you, Yun. Thank you, Jesse, for having me. And everyone, go watch the latest video on Tabless UI. It's at 19,000 views, and I want it to get to 20,000 before the end of today.
네, 태블릿 관련 UI 관련해서 새로운 영상에 나왔으니까 많은 관심을 부탁드린다고 코멘트 남겨주셨습니다. 네, 여기까지가 저희가 준비한 웨비나이고요. 향후에 진행되는 다양한 웨비나랑 유튜브 채널에도 많은 관심을 가져주시기 바랍니다. 마지막으로 늦은 시간까지 열정적으로 참여해 주셔서 대단히 감사하고요. 다음에 또 뵙도록 하겠습니다. 다음에 또 만나요.